once it picks up, we're already in it, and that's something that they were not privy to. But you have to get that special link so you can get that pre-conversation that happens
Oh,
before.
right. The one that the good one is always it's the backstage conversation that's really fun. That's the show.
Yeah, I'll tell you, over the years, I have definitely had moments where I ended the recording and then had a great conversation for like 15 minutes. You were definitely one of those people. And then I started saying like, okay, I'm just going to end, but I'm not going to stop recording. It's
Mhm.
like that moment, I'll let you know when we're off the air, but like
Yeah.
that moment is like, there's always something else that's like, you know what, I also wanted to mention this. And I'm like, I'm so glad I got that.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I hear you.
Okay, listeners, you are here. This is the Broad Street Review Podcast, Season 10. I still can't believe it. We're 4 episodes in, and it's still the 10th season.
Easy.
It is amazing. And we are covering Fringe Arts. We're still covering Fringe Arts. And today we're here with Tina Brock of Idiopathic Radiculopathy Consortium. And we're here to talk about Painting Churches by Tina Howe. How? It's Tina Howe.
Well, could be. I think it's Hal, but listen, I'm not the expert, so just in case that
Yeah.
is the way we're going, I'll put that out there for you.
It's
Yeah.
Howe.
Right.
So let's just
Yeah.
say Ho. We're going
Yeah.
to say Tina Ho.
Okay.
And Tina, sorry, but we're about to celebrate your work anyway.
Yeah.
Tina Brock, welcome back to the podcast. Yay!
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I seem to remember. It feels like what was years ago. I think it was pre-pandemic. Talking to you. I think it was in church in West Philly. We were doing Dream Girl by Elmer Rice. I think it was.
Yes.
I think it was 2017 or something. So it seems
Mhm.
like
Yeah,
everything seems like a long time ago.
I know you've always had these beautiful settings that you set your story in, and I've always really appreciated that. Mhm.
Yeah, thank you. I think a stage setting is something that to me is really it's really important just to create the world of the play,
Mhm.
and um I have, one of the things we've looked to do as a small theater is like where can we take these shows and put them in other spaces, and it's like I love found spaces. I think it's one of the most exciting things for your senses and for the audience senses. But the difficulty, as as you well know, is that you run into when something isn't created as a theater space to be designed and used as a theater space.
Mm.
You run into like case in point on that show, just this beautiful church in West Philadelphia, St. Mary's, and just lovely. So we rehearse the show forever, right? We
Mhm.
we have the specs, like the dimensions of the space, everything. We get in there, and of course, just the sheer gargantuan space, size of that space, and the acoustics of that space, then necessitated an entire restaging and reblocking of the show to point, like we were sitting up at night trying to figure out, are we going to put up baffles? How are we going to corral the sound? So that one of the downsides of found spaces, but always stimulating, the imagination, I think.
Yeah, but that's the element of theater production where the creativity is key. It
Yeah.
always works out.
Yeah, resources and resourcefulness are two very good skills. So I can't hear you. Yeah, I love the lobby. It's just so well integrated. The feng shui of the whole
Mhm.
situation is just really wonderful as as an organization coming into work there. I said to my colleague, it just feels like it was just so well designed.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's the thought. We want to make this more community centered space. So if anybody's looking for a venue, definitely reach out.
Mhm.
But that brings an interesting question because Idiopathic Radiculopathy Consortium, which we uh, quickly call IRC, is a small theater
Mhm.
in this collection of small theaters, which we have many more small theaters than we have large theaters. And so we follow every company's journey over the years to see how they've grown, how their audiences grow, and so on. And we pick different spaces based on the growth of our audience. But as IRC, with all the years that you've been working, do you see IRC owning a venue?
Oh gosh, on some level, to have a home, a home is a great thing, and to be able to know the space you're working in and be able to make your show selections based on, the specs and there was a point, Darnell, where we were walking in the neighborhood not far from where you are, looking at empty garages and old, spaces. This was probably 15 years or so ago. It was probably about 5 or 6 years after we started. And we were really looking and trying to just figure out which 401k could we cash in, or if the tiny amount of money that we had,
Mm-hmm.
at the time, just really the site, we wanted that home ownership and to be able to put down roots. And it just became pretty clear pretty quickly that real estate in Philadelphia and just sort of doing that was not something that was in the cards for a company our size. I mean, literally, we are at various points over the 20 years our budget has been maybe up over $100,000, but it's certainly under that now that we're below.
Mm.
Um, I think a decision is something, the decision at some point in every company's life is, and I would venture to say that probably since COVID, the calculation and or the thinking of, okay, you start out as a small company and then you aspire to be a regional theater, or you aspire to be, I'm not so sure that that is a trajectory that necessarily, it's not a trajectory that everybody has to. There's not one way to get to the promised land,
Mm-hmm.
and the promised land is whatever you decide it is. Is it, it's a combination of personal satisfaction, audience satisfaction, and all of those things. And I think it became pretty clear to us around long after we were looking for a venue and deciding it was out of our range. And there also, when we started, were a lot of venues available.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I think we had that small theater boom back in 2006, 7, 8, all of the small theaters
Yeah.
about, because there were lots of opportunities. There were cafes, and there were, La Tage, where we used to perform, and there
Mm-hmm.
were galleries that were willing, which and still are willing to host you. There were, theaters that had second spaces and whatnot. And through COVID and a number of other things, that doesn't quite exist anymore. But I think we have come to determine that we are not on that regional theater track, never going to be. And just simply because it doesn't really suit our goals as artists and individuals. And I think our audience is very satisfied with where we are as a very small theater company.
Yeah.
Um, I think they like that experience. And I think in your space, we found the proper fit of the expansiveness of the work and the size of the space and the accessibility of the space and all of that. So I think, yes, would it be nice to have more money and more funding sources? Always. But I don't think every actor doesn't have to be on Broadway. Every actor doesn't have to be doing feature films. Every actor does.
Mm-hmm.
It is what is going to satisfy for you that thing. And that holds true with theater companies as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also think there's more flexibility in a company that doesn't have brick and mortar. It's like having access to it is one thing, but we saw it in the pandemic. A lot of the larger companies were having a hard time because filling their space to capacity, or as close as capacity as they can get, was the thing that they were missing the most.
Yeah.
And it's like, sure, we could produce great theater. We have great talented designers who can make something virtual happen, but we really need to get people back into our space. We just renovated. We just got brand
Yeah.
new chairs, like all kinds of things like that. And it's tough. It's like, and I don't think many artists set out to be building managers either.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I know way back when, a guy that this is a kind of a lame association, but it reminds me of this guy that used to cut my hair. And I always thought he was such an artist. I was like, you're such, and he goes, can I just tell you that I did not, and he owns the salon. He's like, I did not get into this business to be managing employees and paying, he's like, I just want to cut hair, and that's kind of, I think, I not everybody feels that way. And, you obviously got to get people who are behind. They're the really important people, that are the accountants, the folks that are watching the budget and doing all that. But you're right. It's a lot more money. This is it's a more mobile pick up, kind of pick it up, put it down situation. The challenge right now, as we talked about yesterday in Philadelphia, is just that for small theaters, there just aren't that there aren't that dearth of spaces that there were. Is dearth the right word? I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm using it, and I think I might be using it incorrectly. But there aren't an excessive
Plethora,
space,
abundance,
abundance of spaces.
abundance.
So that then you have to sort of like think. You have to kind of be ahead of it. And the problem with today's world, like to my mind, as an artistic director, is like it's one thing to be picking a play 6 or 7 months ahead of time, and you're like, okay, we're sort of stable. We're sort of doing this. This is the artistic thing that I want to say right now. Every day I wake up, there's some new calamity happening, okay. But it also, to some degree, I mean, it's getting like, I think we're getting more used to dealing with that. Like, okay, it's calamity every day, all the time, but it's also like, what experience do you want your audience to have when they leave this calamity every day? Do you want them to come into familiar things, language? What is the thing that you want them to revel in when they are sitting with you for an hour and a half?
Yeah, absolutely. And so now that we've run all around,
Yeah, sorry, I tended to.
no,
Yeah,
totally fine. Like
cool.
I always want to get some sort of like foundational together. I know you came here because you're dying to know about painting churches, but learn a little bit about IRC and the landscape that we're in, and now we can talk about painting churches.
All right, let's talk about it. What do you want to know?
So first of all, I always love the choices that you make. What you decide to bring to the stage. So tell us about painting churches and why you chose to bring this piece to Fringe in 2025.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I read, this was the hardest decision I've ever made selecting a play. Generally, I have a list and there's 10 things on the list, right? And then it comes down to cast size, which show's going to fit right in which venue, all of that, trying to fit the puzzle together. I literally was reading, I read, which is our job, but like I've never had to like, and I started off with because the problem was picking the genre. So you think, oh, right, we live in this world right now. It's absurd. Let's do that. Okay, right? You're an absurdist theater company. Here we go. You've been waiting for this, right? And but somehow when I read Sartre and when I read like Ionesco was close. There was a certain buoyancy of Ionesco that I thought kind of suited the calamity of the times. But Ionesco tends to have a lot of like it takes a village in Ionesco, and there's just a ton of people on stage, and that was like something to manage. But I read Kafka, which seemed like in the correct ballpark, the kind of craziness of kind of like of the government sort of whatever, the authority figure is what Kafka deals with a lot. And anyway, bottom line is, after reading all of those, I thought to myself, I feel like we're in a post-absurdist era at this point. We're sort of like just in something that hasn't been defined yet, and it hasn't been. It's being written right now. Some author is out there writing it. So why don't we go to something that is more an examination of like just literally trying to get along? And then I looked at the family and I'm like, okay, well, that's your basic element of trying to get along. And if it goes wrong there or it goes right there, that stays with you for the rest of your life, And as artists, which is one of the central themes of it, an artist comes home from New York that, she has a big gallery showing at Castelli's Gallery. And I just remember as a kid, like I used to produce shows in the backyard as a kid when I was really young. And I just remember like, I think those early attempts at producing were attempts to show my parents in a very sort of, I don't know, like non-threatening way. This is art. You can do it in your backyard. You can have a barbecue. This is dinner theater. We can have a barbecue and everybody can have whatever they want to have, beverage, and we can sit around and watch all our neighbors do things, right? And I think those were early attempts to recognize and be and sort of say to them, this is legitimate. Like you're laughing right now, right? Mom and dad, this is legit. And as I like went through my life, I remember continuing to try to like go to the well and explain why one would do small theater while working a full-time job, and then quite never getting it. I mean, they did and they didn't. It's not dissimilar to Fanny and Gardner. And it would be like, they'd be like, oh, that's just so wonderful, dear. That's just fabulous. That's really great. Your art is so good. And they weren't condescending. They just didn't understand, really. My mother did, in very much the same way Fanny understands, and she was quite artistic, but just her life never she was never in a position in her life or never took the position to sort of like go beyond the church choir, or go beyond making the crazy lampshade, or go beyond the needlepoint, whatever the heck was she was making, So anyway, long answer to your question is, I think it's the never-ending search, I think, as artists, to try to get people, parents, particularly family, to understand this is like, it's a choice, sure, but a lot of times it's not a choice. I mean, it's like it chooses you, and you have the choice to say no, but it's sort of like trying to explain the unexplainable, and you just kind of like, you know, it just going back to the well each and every time, to try to explain it. So that's what lured me into it, and I thought, isn't that interesting that, like, at this time where we are for a lot of people, I just felt like we had to get back in the room, because we didn't do a show last year, and we knew we would come back, and I was like, no, this is the year we have to start up again. It's just, I said, if 3 people come to see this show, great, because those 3 people we will be in communion with, we will be we'll having a conversation, and we will be fulfilling our mission. Now, that doesn't help financially, but so that is the reason I chose it. I thought that it addressed a lot of things having to do with art and family, and trying to get people to understand what it is you're trying to do, and why we have to continue to try to do that.
I love that, and your explanation of it makes this piece so timely, because I was fortunate enough. I saw the production. Your first preview, by the way, it's very sturdy for first preview. Wonderful.
Thank you.
And it feels chaotic because the parents don't really get their daughter's art, and it's just so funny how they've interpreted it when there's moments where they're thinking about previous showings that they were at, and it's just sort of like, they don't get it. They don't get it, but it's just that they're looking at it from a different viewpoint. And then, as the story progresses, we get this beautiful moment where, the clouds clear, and then everything comes in the full view.
Yeah.
And I had to walk away and let that cook for a minute to say, oh my God, that's what a wonderful telling of this story.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that. I think she really captured, I mean, here's the thing, and I think I said this to you last night, that Peggy Meacham, and who directed, helped me with this piece, from the Irish Heritage Theatre. We all looked at each other as we were going through this, late in the game, and we said, wow, this it never happened to me before, like in directing a show, where, like, it is so many themes going on underneath the surface, and they just keep bubbling up. Like, another one, as you're talking, that we grappled with, is this whole idea of memory, right? So that you sit down with your family or somebody that's close to you, and they have a very different take on an incident that to you was just, could have been life changing for you, and the other person, and I say parents because I think it can be that way sometimes, where they're like, I just don't remember it that way at all. And it can be
Yeah.
a very, like, obviously with Mags, these were life-changing events for her that really shaped how she was going to be as an artist. And her parents are like, I don't remember that at all. It wasn't like that way at all. And I do think that's interesting in the time that we're in right now, just when we go to have certain conversations as we're trying to figure out in our world, like, okay, am I going to silo deeper into my viewpoints about fill in the blank, whether it's politics or art or whatever, or am I really going to try to understand the other person? Do I have the energy and the bandwidth right now to try to get where you are coming from, or am I just shutting it down? And I think at the end of the play that you sort of spoke a little bit about is, they're sort of, they're viewing Mags's work. She's come there to do a portrait of them, and they can't appreciate the certain type of art that she is creating. And yet, as they reflect off it and reflect off each other, it is a window into another world that is something they can understand, which is a very traditional kind of, uh, an impressionism, French impressionism, which is something they understand. So they're using it as a platform to kind of, but isn't that what art is? It's a reflection back onto ourselves of our art. And, I mean, how many times have we sat at theater and been like, I'm trying to find my way into this piece, or, oh, this piece is just, I kicked into this like right straight away, you know? Um,
Absolutely.
so yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking. That's why it's a little premature to give your opinion about a show that you just saw. You know, like when you walk out the door, like they do that in movies where it's a preview and then they kind of hit you outside. What'd you think? Oh
Yeah.
my God, it's a thrill ride. It's wonderful. Oh my God. You know, action films, it works like that. That's sort of an instant reaction. But when it comes to theater, like we do have to cook on it for a minute. I think that's also why it was always encouraged as a Barrymore voter or nominator to really take a minute
Uh-uh.
before you submit your ballot, because you have to let this process for a second. And so I've always said, you know, the the performance is sort of the meat of the conversation, but the conversation doesn't end when the curtain goes down. You know, it continues in the lobby, it continues on the walk home, or however you commute, however you end up home. It continues overnight because it's your brain is trying to process all kinds of things. So you're having dreams. It's like a combination of everything that was going on. You wake up in the morning, you go to work, you talk to someone, and now you're recapping everything now
Mhm.
that time has passed, and you're trying to share your experience with someone else, and you're learning in the process
Mhm.
of sharing your experience. And so I've always said that my viewpoint on a show just evolves, it continues to evolve the more that I talk about it.
Mhm.
And so there's a value for me to have this conversation before a show, before I get to see a show, and there's also value to see it, to have the chat afterwards, because I have this foundation or I have a curiosity before.
Mhm.
It's just
Yeah.
a plus side, but it just depends on when I want to enter the conversation. Do I
Mhm.
want to enter it before it starts,
Yeah.
and anticipate, or do I want to it in motion and just jump in the car, you
Yeah,
know?
no, that's a great, it's kinda how rehearsal works a little bit, like,
Yeah.
it gets in your cell, and it just
Hmm.
has to sit there a little bit, and then and that's, I've always been really fascinated with the rehearsal process and, like, what kind of time needs to, because, we have different schedules each time we do a show, and for this particular one, we had vacations coming in the middle of everything and stuff,
Hmm.
and it was interesting that there were periods where there was a little bit, we all agreed, a little bit more time elapsed than we would like. I mean, that is one for better or worse, one of the benefits of rehearsing a show over a bit of a longer period of time is that it does have a chance to cook a
Yeah.
little bit. And it is interesting what settles into your DNA, to your, like, the little cellular area, and then you come in the next day and you're like, oh God, I never even thought about that.
Hmm.
I'm
Yeah.
still, I mean, I love to hear it when people say, oh, I'm still thinking about that show, or I'm still, like, to me, that's the kind of work I want us to be doing. That
Hmm.
it is, and you can't really predict that, but it is, I say you pick thoughtful writers and you pick work that's, stimulating, but that's the greatest, I think.
It was nice to be in this house and hear some of the chatter that was going on with the patrons behind me. It was things like, somebody's wondering whether it ended because of how the light went out, and there's like a pause in a moment, but then after that you hear them talking about bits and pieces. Like I heard one couple say, "No, the movers are very much a part of the show." And it was like, yeah, like very important. And then the guy goes, ah, and then he's like, I do. Oh, this is an interesting. It's so funny because they were just talking in that moment, that transitional moment. And it's like it's just evolving for them too.
Yes, right.
It's like, oh, these are taking so long. They're not, like, this is actually part of the process.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Why? Well, and the movers are
Yeah.
there to cover the costume changes, really.
Hmm.
No set changes, as you know. And it's interesting because in the script, she calls for a whole lot more decimation on stage. Like there's literally like stuff is supposed to be like literally like accumulating on stage, and there just more
Mm.
boxes are coming out, and they're putting things away. And the problem there is that I just, as a director, don't want the audience, because we already are asking, we took the intermission out of the play because I think it really needs to fly. And so I kind of made some decisions about, okay, let's just, I don't want to clog up the scenic design as well. So, like, let's just suggest what's going on here. The scenes have us doing those things. It does continually, her language points to Fanny being a very, fastidious and kind of neat and keep things in order and everything. So I thought it kind of worked that there's not just junk everywhere. I just didn't want the audience to have to sit while we cleared each situation. So we tried to time the movers moving things, the hand props and the things that needed to happen with our costume changes in the back, so that we weren't letting everybody sit too long. But I love hearing that they caught the movers. And
I do like that chaos of like too many things on stage, like in the production of the chairs.
Yes. Well, ENS was all about proliferation.
Yeah.
That's austerity, and ENS goes about proliferation. I do love that as well. And normally I would go lock, stock, and barrel with it, but knowing that it needed to be picked up each time after it happened, I was like, that is going to that's going to be a challenge.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about the scenic design.
Yeah, well, so I thought, Dirk, and I hope I get his name, Durosset, I think is Dirk. I hope I got it right.
Sounds right.
Designed our set and has done a number of sets for us. And Tony Clemente built it, and Tony's a builder, home, etc. And those windows, so his design, she's pretty specific about her design. It has 3 windows. They are upstage. They are, sort of a chapel, like a pointed design on that. And so Dirk was very faithful to what was described. And then the question, because it really doesn't, we're in the same house, in the same space, doing the same, thing. And I felt like where, aside from the fact that it's just so well built and it's exact, and it just, I think, is really lovely in its execution. He put this up on Facebook today, what his initial design was versus what we ended up with, and they're almost identical. And now, granted, it's not an impressionist situation. It is a very sort of like realistic situation. But I think where the beauty of it comes in is in the symmetry of it, is in the choice of the wallpaper, is in the choice of how are we going to cover the floor to give because there's a nod to the eccentricity of these 2 people. He is a Pulitzer Prize-winning poet. She is a woman who presumably never worked, but that sort of supported her husband's career, and there are some eccentricities both in them as people and also in the house. And the question is, how do we get the eccentricities in there?
Yeah.
So, when we went shopping for props, it's like, okay, well, let's take these 2 eagle lamps that are, reflective of Boston, what American Eagle sort of like, history. And then, there's these crazy sconces that look like something out of a French impressionist painting, And that's the fun of it, is to try to put all those things together. And I think that it really came together. I was just really thrilled with the way that it came together. It's a fun set to play on. And that's a really good place to be in.
Yeah.
Where it just invites you to be as playful as you can be.
Yeah. And it takes up a good amount of space too. So you feel like when you walk in here, you are giving yourself to a moment. And I know that that's our intention all the time, but sometimes, we were talking about, the type of furniture we buy today versus the type of furniture that's in this setting. It's like the couch, it's a beautiful couch, but it's like twice the size of a couch that we would probably buy from IKEA or something,
Yeah.
And, it was made to last. Like, no, we designed the room around this, this couch,
Yeah, well, I think I told you, like the first one we brought in, it looked good when we were out at Vista getting the, sourcing it. But then when we got it in here next to those 2 chairs next to it, it kind of was a little bit dwarfed. I was like, this is just not going to fly. Plus, the wood was a bit like slightly different color. And I don't know, I think that's part of the fun of it, is sort of like, it's like a dollhouse, you're putting together these pieces. And that couch, I mean, it's like they don't make, well, I'm not gonna say they don't make them like that anymore, because they do, but like as our conversation yesterday, I mean, like this is a couch. I mean, like, yeah, it's super sturdy and you can do all kinds of things on it. Well, I mean, that's also what's fun about a set too, is when it's like a gymnasium, like how can your how can your furniture serve? What are the different physicality? What is the different way you can use those pieces?
That's an interesting point too. I don't think anybody walks into the theater thinking about that. Like, this is all equipment.
It's totally.
We're telling a story, but we need all of these tools, in order to get the work done.
Yeah, you need obstacles like in the form of, and Ionesco also, Eugene Ionesco, the Romanian French playwright, used to talk about furniture on the stage being a character in the play, and that it really needed to be dealt with that way because the absence of it sort of, and that was kind of the point I think at the end of this play, is that to take it as many things off the stage as we could, barring like we can't move the furniture off, but so that it looked empty and it devoid of it lost its life, the life that is the home.
Yeah. And there's so many moments like where Mags looks around and said, oh my God, this place is so empty now.
Yeah.
And also thinking about how full it used to be.
Yeah. Moves are hard. I've never, I've always
They really
I think it's
are.
hard.
It's also, if you notice in TV shows, when they wrap up a TV show, they always take one last look at the iconic set,
Yeah.
And we do that when we move too, It's like, I'm ready to hand the keys in. You take one more look and you're like, okay, on to the next thing.
I know it's a thing too, and we've had a lot of questions about where are the windows going. Where will those? Because it's like a thing. You spend so many months like living in it, and it's sad.
Yeah.
Like at the end of a show, I'm always very sad. It's a lot. It's a creation. It's just like Mags. It's a creation.
Yeah. So, before we wrap up today, I've been asking every fringe artist a similar question. What do you need as an artist to allow your work to shine bright? And it could be anything. It could be something material, something sentimental. It could be infrastructure. It could be time, anything. What do you think you need the most in order to let your work shine bright?
So do you mean sort of, I could go one or two ways with this. One is as an artist or as a company, because they're a little bit different.
Actually, I would love both questions.
Yeah.
Both answers.
As an artist, I just, a good script, and by good script, I mean something, meaningful. Obviously something. We're an existentialist theater company, so I grapple a lot with and form the company to be able to, as Ionesco said, theater is the expression. It's an art form that expresses itself in a way that nothing else is like. It is. You have to be in the room to experience it, and you are experiencing it with other people, so it changes every night, every time you're with. So for me, on a much more granular level, I always put something as a hand prop or something on the set that is personal to me or to my family, or because that just always immediately sparks something interesting. So that's like a very literal way of interpreting your question. What do you need as an artist to do? But it's really just a space and an audience is I think theater, I've been reminded this show that theater is really just how it is so important in ways that, say, working in other areas like film and television are very different and very fulfilling, but they are not anything like this. And we know that, and we say that, but then when you do it, you're like, oh my God, of course, of course, this is why we work full-time jobs and come in to do like this theater. This is why we work ourselves to the bone to do this, because it's necessary, and this is what you get out of it. On a larger scale, I think over the 20 years that we've been here, obviously the landscape has changed a lot since we've been here. And I think when we started, there were a lot of venues, a lot of available. There were a lot of people coming forward with spaces saying, "Here, we'd love to have you come in and be our resident company, or we'd love to have you come in and do shows here." Galleries were opening themselves up, bars, you name it. I think the funding picture has changed a little bit since maybe COVID, in the sense that it isn't quite as clear the path for a small theater anymore. There, you know what I mean? And it may just simply be because we aren't uncovering enough rocks and we're not looking hard enough and we're not doing things. But we've always had a huge influx of like 75-80% of our budget comes from individual donations and ticket sales, which is very, very high. And that's how we've been able to survive. And then a less amount is from city or state, but a few things have changed since COVID, where certain grants that were available to us before have been configured differently and are going towards different needs. And you can't argue with that. That's like, there's a lot of things that need to happen in the city and a lot of things that need to happen in the state. So you trust that whoever's making those decisions. I also think art is very important. So I'm hoping that the conversation can continue about how do we, because it is feeling like a bit of a like, oh, okay, we really got to analyze this. How are we going to continue to do this? And make a product that we're really proud of, that we want, that is meaningful. Because we are doing it on a budget. So there's only so much you can cut, so I think that's a really good challenge for all of us, is to just keep having the conversations, really put it out there that here's what we need, and I'm very thankful for your venue and a number of others. There's a lot of companies that want to do work, so I don't think I think we have more companies than we have space right now, is what I think I see.
Yeah. And now people are becoming more comfortable getting out and producing too. And so I think, who knows, this might be one of those 2006, 7, 8 moments where something happens out of nowhere. We have a bunch of tiny little venues,
Yeah, it kind of feels that way to me. It has a similar kind of energy to it. So I really hope you're right, because small theater, big impact, you can do it. It's not about, it's just not about the size of
Absolutely.
it. It's just not.
Yeah. And thank you, Tina. The production is called Painting Churches. It's written by Tina Howe. It is presented by Idiopathic Radiculopathy Consortium. It is at Theatre Exile now through September 21st. If you are listening to this now, you should have bought tickets already. What are you waiting for? You know the rules. Halfway through the conversation, you have to go click the link and buy 2 tickets or more, because theater is more fun with a +1. Tina Brock, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. I really enjoyed the show in the first preview, and I think it's going to have a great run. Everybody get out and see Painting Churches. Add it to your planner on the back of the festival guide. I'm so thankful for that, as you can just have everything that you need all right there and sort it all out in the guide. It's very smart. So support Fringe Arts. Go see anything in the festival. You have now to the 28th, but this is one you should put on your calendar. Tina Brock, thank you so much.
Thank
you. It was truly a pleasure.